A lovely church, Holy Rosary. Not lovely in the way that you have those Gothic churches with, pointed arches and crockets and spinels. Not like that. 1960s style, I suppose. Clean lines, simple design. But something that can lift the spirits and the heart. And of course, great pride for all of those who, in one way or another, make Holy Rosary possible. Not one brick of Holy Rosary now stands upon another. Not one. The site is cleared. I'm talking about Holy Rosary Church in Gateshead. Similar sort of age to this one. Similar sort of size, I suppose. But some time ago, with the diminishing numbers and rising costs, the parishioners realized it couldn't go on. And they sold the church. And they were going to use the money to refurbish the presbytery and fit it out with rooms so that they could have Mass in the house. Just a small community. But within a very short time of them having sold the church, there was an arson attack and the church was burnt down. And what was left of it had to be demolished. So if you go there to the site now, there's the house, but of the church, nothing. Nothing. Of course, a great upset to the people who had given so much of their lives to the construction of such a church, and for whom it had been a place of special importance. In the Gospel today, Jesus talks about the temple and says not one stone will be left standing on another. All these beautiful things that you admire, it will all go. And the temple to this day is no more. All you see is, the platform on which it once stood. It must have been like an emotional earthquake for the people when 40 years after Jesus talking about its destruction, it actually happened. I suppose it's to make us think about in what do we place our security? What is our true spiritual home? I was brought up in a generation when if you went on holiday and you were going to be away for the Sunday, what you did was it was the first thing you did when you arrived. You found out where the nearest Catholic church was, and you had to know what time the Mass was going to be. And when you went back home, there'd be an investigation. Did you find it? And it didn't matter whether it was a magnificent church or whether Mass was being celebrated in a pub. And yes, I've been to Masses in pubs, perhaps you have, where they didn't yet have a church, or perhaps some kind of club or sports hall. But the point was that you didn't say when you went on holiday, from my point of view, it was, this is St. Robert's, Fenham, my home parish, so therefore I won't go to Mass. It has to be in that church, otherwise it's just not good enough. I was brought up with the attitude that wherever you have Mass, wherever it might be, that's the church. That's what really counts. And while it's lovely to have buildings, and they mean a great deal to us, I don't underestimate that. It's a significant place in our lives. It helps us in our worship, and it helps us to root ourselves in our spiritual lives. Yet, as Jesus himself said last Sunday in the Gospel, when he talks about knock down this temple and in 3 days I will raise it up again, and St. John tells us he was talking of the temple which is his body. We're supposed to think of where the true house of God is. It is within. It is among us as we gather. That's the most important thing. Now, it might be going through your head, what's he trying to tell us? Is he saying something about Holy Rosary here in Billingham? He's not. But you know as well as I do that as we face the future, as we look to what is going to happen in years ahead, and it may be 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, we just don't know. We have no idea. For those people that Jesus speaks to, he tells them that there'll come a time when the temple isn't there. And he tells them, think about what's really important. Don't be terrified. Don't be worried. Okay, there'll be all kinds of weird things happen, and people will say, the end of the world. That's it. Finish. And he says, remain calm. It will be your opportunity to bear witness. It's really interesting. I remember Bishop Owen Swindlehurst talking about our parish churches a long time ago now, but even then, everybody, as we thought about what was going to happen in the future, we were all considering what might come about. And he said that one of the disadvantages of our success in the building of our parishes has been that we call all of these buildings the parish church. And he pointed out that we never used to call them that. 100 years ago, this would not have been called the parish church. It would have been called the Catholic mission. That was the first title they would give to such places. And in deference, I suppose, to, the Church of England and awareness that they would take umbrage, we tend not to bandy about the title parish church a great deal. It was often termed the Catholic chapel. The last church I was in, the last parish church I was in Jarrow, its address, Chapel Road. Still called Chapel Road, even though it's the biggest church in the town. Chapel. Because it's to make us think about what we're about. What we're truly about is the opportunity to bear witness, to be mission, to be people who take the gospel message to others, and to recognize that in our gathering, in our family, that's what makes the church. As I say, it's not that churches aren't important to us, and they have an effect upon us in so many ways, and that is to be valued and recognized and celebrated. But we must understand the heart of it. The house of God, it's in you. The church, it's you and me.